On reaching Jerusalem, Jesus entered the temple courts and began driving out those who were buying and selling there. He overturned the tables of the money changers and the benches of those selling doves, and would not allow anyone to carry merchandise through the temple courts. And as he taught them, he said, "Is it not written, 'My house will be called a house of prayer for all nations,' but you have made it a den of robbers." The chief priests and the teachers of the law heard this and began looking for a way to kill him, for they feared him, because the whole crowd was amazed at his teaching. I wonder what the money changers have been thinking at this intrusion. There we were, doing what we always did, making profit from the strangers visiting the temple. It was a good little earner, making lots of money in the exchange from their currencies into temple shekels. Of course, we were providing a service for them. How else could they pay their temple taxes if we hadn't been there to help them? It was a busier than usual day too. Lots of visitors queuing up to give us their money. The animal sellers were doing well too. Sacrifices had to be properly done according to the law, and they always provided the best lambs, pigeons and doves. Well, nearly always. But if there were a few blemishes, what would it matter? The customers didn't check, and the priests got their cut from the profits, so they wouldn't make a fuss. Then there was chaos. This upstart from Galilee with his band of followers started shouting something about the temple being a house of prayer and that we were defiling it with what we were doing. I ask you, what next? Didn't he realize that we were doing everybody a favour by being there? The whole temple would have ground to a halt if it weren't for us offering our services. And what if we did make a bit on the side to keep our families comfortable? What's so wrong about that? Everybody needs to make a living. But it got worse. This Jesus fellow made a whip out of cords and started overturning our tables, coins rolling in all directions. We scrambled to gather up what we could, but then the animals were released too, and trying to find my coins became an impossible task. Squabbles broke out among the money changers as they tried to gather up as many shekels as possible, each claiming as many for themselves as they could find. The animal sellers started to chase their sacrificial animals around the courtyard, but the cracking of the whip only made them more nervous, and they flew out of the courtyard, never to be seen again. And all the while, he just stood there, looking at the chaos that he had caused, defiant and confident, unlike his followers who were anxious and wondering what he was doing. I guess they had never seen him like this before. Strange thing was that no one tried to stop him. Even the temple police stood back and just watched. Let him get away with it, or maybe they were just waiting, biding their time for a quieter opportunity to get him when no one was looking. What he had done this time would give them the chance they had been waiting for. And what about us? Well, it'll all be better tomorrow. We'll be on our guard this time, and we can earn more anyway. It's getting close to the Passover. The city is teeming with visitors, and there will be no end to our profit as long as Jesus doesn't turn up again. Who did he think he was? God Almighty? The temple area was always crowded during Passover with thousands of out-of-town visitors. The religious leaders crowded it further by allowing money changers and merchants to set up booths in the court of the Gentiles. The temple tax had to be paid in local currency, but the money changers would charge exorbitant exchange rates. As they had travelled vast distances, many people had to buy their animals for sacrifices in the temple area, where prices were higher than elsewhere. Jesus was angry at the dishonesty, the greedy practices of the money changers, the merchants who exploited those who had come to God's house to worship. They were making a mockery of God's house of worship. Was it at this point, I wonder, that Judas decided he would betray him? Perhaps we need to reflect. Is there anything that we do or say that might prevent others from coming to worship God? Is there anything we do or think that prevents us from worshipping wholeheartedly? Is there anything which we are angry about that we need to give to Jesus rather than keeping it to ourselves? Is there anything else which needs liberating from our lives? My house will be called a house of prayer for all nations. Pray for All Saints Cathedral to be a house of prayer for all. Pray for injustices that you are aware of in your community, in our city, in our nation, in God's world.